Oh,
How
hello.
are you? This
Um,
is James Kennedy here with me today as an NHS mental health nurse, as the first guest on our Refreshers Week. So, welcome, James.
how'd you do?
Very well. No pressure to be the first guest of the week. So,
No.
I may be a little bit rusty myself, but we'll get through it. We'll be all good.
Okay.
For those that don't know me, should I introduce myself? I'm Jason. I'm the Student Wellbeing Officer at Dundee and Angus College, and I'm hosting the Refreshers Week, where we're going to have a host of different guests on discussing all things wellbeing. So we're kicking off with James, and James is going to be on to talk about the really important topic of suicide prevention. I recently underwent my suicide prevention training, so I now train this topic, having been trained by James. And I thought I'd get James on today to talk to us about what that actually involves, and who might want to access it. And it's such a big topic at the moment that what getting an expert in on this topic. And I'm just going to hand over to James to let you tell exactly who he is, what his role is, and what's going on.
Okay. So my name's James Kennedy. As Jason says, I'm a community mental health nurse. I'm actually the team leader with the Montrose Brecon community mental health team. Been a mental health nurse for 38 years, so quite a long time.
Oh, look at
Um,
James, doesn't look it. 38 years, wow.
Yeah, and I suppose, and part of my training and part of what I deliver is both, I suppose, in relation to well-being, RAP, which is relates to self-management course, but mainly today is around the suicide prevention. I've been delivering suicide prevention training predominantly in Angus for well over a decade, but I have ever delivered across the whole of Tayside in various venues right across Tayside, but I've also delivered up in the Highlands and as well. So I think the thing is that we hear probably more about suicide and suicide prevention than we've probably ever had. But I suppose it's about accessing this courses that we provide. So as I said, I've been doing it for quite a long time, and you alluded to, Jason, you've just been recently trained, and that
Yeah.
was one of the issues in Tayside is that essentially for the whole of Tayside we had two people delivering, which was not near enough, and so we trained 14 brand new facilitators last year. We trained people from a variety of places, from the college where you're based to people working in the third sector, some mental health nurses, some people working in other charities as well. And that was really good because really this is not about a mental health professional delivering it. I think what it gets a message across is A, anybody could deliver this,
Yeah.
but B, what's really important is that this course is open to anyone, anybody at all in the public. It's not about just offering it to mental health practitioners or people working in that kind of social or care sector. It's actually open to anybody who either just wants to help who's somebody who may be suicidal. It might be helping a family member or a close loved one, or it might be that you're in a job that involves coming across people who may be potentially suicidal. And I think one of the key messages that we get across is that anybody anywhere could find themselves in the position where they're feeling suicidal, because what we often think it's associated with mental illness, and it's not. It's really about distress is one of the main causes. So
Mhm.
one of the main messages that we get across is this is why it's open to everybody, and the course provides information about who's at risk. What are the kind of risk factors associated with suicide? Why is there still some stigma? How can we help? So, what can we do as a member of the public, or a professional, but a member of the public certainly? What can I do to help somebody that's feeling suicidal? And I suppose the other bit is what help is out there, because I think the thing is, it's all very well speaking to somebody, but what is help is there for somebody who's feeling that way?
That's spot on, James. And we're going to pick into some of that stuff over the next sort of half an hour of this interview. So there's a couple of things, like there was so much going on there. It was brilliant. And I was going to pick into a couple of things that you've said there. So you mentioned right at the start, I'll roll off your tongue the word rap. What does RAP stand for again, James? Can you just remind us?
Yeah,
For
so RAP stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan. So it's a part of that continuum of well-being, about people looking after their own mental health and well-being.
Mhm.
And there's kind of, so that's in itself a 2-day course. And I suppose one of the things within the suicide prevention side of things that's quite closely akin to that is the safety plan. So
Yes. Yeah.
there's the safety plan that is it's really helpful for people who's feeling suicidal, and it's very much based on that kind of philosophy of not just early warning signs and triggers, but actually things like coping strategies, things that we can do to help each other, places of distraction. So it very much follows that kind of well-being philosophy.
It's good. It just when you mentioned it there, it's actually on our staff CPT calendar at the moment. The RAP 2-day training. I
Right.
believe it starts this week, and then the second day is next week. So I know from looking at it, there's about 12, 13 people booked onto that. So
Good.
they've got an exciting time to come because it really
Yeah.
is. I mean, I learned, I got a lot out of the safety plan as part of the training.
Yeah.
And again, I'll mention some bits of this as we go through as well. What I really loved to hear you saying, by the way, was that this is open to everybody. That's crucial, guys. Like that's coming from the horse's mouth. You know, like this isn't for mental health professionals. It's not guarded by us. Like, oh, we've got no. It genuinely is for everybody. So the students out there watching this just now, and I know there's at least one with a message. Asking, you know, how do I access this training? I want to know more about this.
Yep.
Well, this is the right place to start, is to listen to this conversation, and you're hearing from this that it is completely accessible to you. What we're going to talk about is the different opportunities of the training I'll be running, as well as the other 13 people, plus Stephen and James himself, that are running these across Tayside. And once you've been on one of them, it might be then that you realise you want to do the 3-day, which would be the train the trainer, which is what I was on before Christmas.
Yeah.
Would that be the way you would go with it, James? Is that how you would?
Yeah, yeah, and I think first of all, I suppose what you mentioned is about the access to the course. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, access is through me in terms of most of the Angus courses that I put on. So that's through my NHS account. But I've put a lot of these courses on social media. So they've been on social media on my own account, but they've also been through Angus Health and Social Care Partnership and Angus Councils on their kind of social media accounts, so that people can access it. So it's accessible that way. You just sign up. I tell you the dates now. These courses are popular. I mean, I've got 3 courses on January to March. They're already full, and I've got a waiting list. But don't let that put you off, because the more people sign up, the more we can put courses on. And one of the advantages we now have, Jason, is the fact that we have so many more trainers that we can actually say, do you know what? I can't do it, but I've got a whole heap of people that can do it. And I suppose it can be. And I think the other thing is, if people have got some, you know, a group of individuals, or maybe it's a company or somebody they're working for, say, well, you know what, we're really keen to do this. So, for example, Angus Alive just been in touch. They've got some personal trainers that'd be really interested. Somebody said, fine, how many have you got? We can sign you up. So, yeah, you come on that 1-day course, and potentially that might be enough, and that's all you need. Or potentially say, do you know what? I would maybe be keen to do this. This is something that we'd be keen to do. For a long time, there was basically me. So now we've got 14, but once we get it, there is really a kind of growing interest in this. So how can we get out there and get that message to say this is available? Come and do the course, and then it might be that people say, "Do you know, I fancy being a trainer." So yeah, as you said, Jason, it was a 3-day course to get that started.
Yeah, that's right.
And one of the great things, as I've already said, is because they're from all different areas. So that should hopefully say it's not about just mental health people delivering this. It could be anybody who's got an interest and want to make a difference.
Oh, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Having been in the room with like 13 very different individuals, I would say that was the case. And, you know, it can be like very daunting being a non-NHS person to go into a room full of NHS people at an NHS facility. That can be quite intimidating. But I didn't feel intimidated at all.
No.
3 days. Felt very at home, actually, because people are there for a variety of reasons. A lot of them, you know, their own reasons. And they've come to that, whether it's work, whether it's whatever it is. There's a real reason for them being there. It's a great group.
Yeah, and I think you said there, we've alluded to that. So previously we've only been delivering on NHS premises. So for the first time, we're going to be delivering in the new Montrose Playhouse. So we're going to be actually delivering the course in the cinema. So
yeah, you're telling me about this. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So we wanted a different audience. We wanted to see if we could get a different audience. We wanted to make it somewhere local. That was in the town, and I think that's one of the things that we'll hope to achieve, maybe with the new trainers. I mean, obviously you're in the college, so there's the potential access to a lot of students there. So we want to do it areas that are a bit more accessible, a little bit different,
Mhm.
might be familiar to you, so you're quite comfortable because you already go to college or wherever it is. So we're trying to make this out with NHS premises and make it just more in the community. And the more we can do that, I'm sure we'll get much more diverse audiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, even just like using a different approach, where you were saying social media to advertise this is going to get the different people in. Certainly, from my end, what I'll be doing is I've committed to doing a couple of days externally from the college. I've done one already, which was at Roxburgh House, and there'll be another couple this year. But also in-house as well. I'll be doing courses, the 1 week course, not just for staff, but also for students as well. So that'll be my plan. So that'll be Arbroath campus and Dundee campus. So it'll give those students who are interested the ability to sign up to this. At this moment in time, I don't have dates confirmed. I know all the dates for yourself and Stephen also, who works alongside James. For those that don't know Stephen, that's who I did my first delivery with. But certainly, if you're doing ones at like Montrose, for example, I can be advertising that on our social media channels here at the college as well. If you need spaces filled, so yeah, we can really share across.
Yeah, and Callum, who's one of the trainers who works for Penumbra, so
Yep.
Penumbra's got, so again, there are both, although they're right across Angus. So again, and he's already told me they've had a big interest in this as well. So I
Brilliant.
think one of the best things we could have done is probably train so many diverse trainers because we're already tapping into networks that we knew.
Because the one you mentioned, Callum, there for Penumbra. So we've actually got Penumbra on one of these live interviews on testing me now. Is it Wednesday? I think I've got Mark Fisher on. So Mark Fisher is the Dundee equivalent of Callum, I believe. He might not be. Apologies, Mark, I'm just giving you the wrong title. But I know that he works in self-harm. I know that, and Mark is on Wednesday. So certainly, we're all linked in a way,
Yeah.
and. I certainly know there was an article like in the Courier recently, and that was from Kelly, who's with Hillcrest, I believe.
Yep.
I didn't have the right title.
Yeah, you have. Yeah. And
great articles. That's brought people that you would never, have contacted you, that maybe wouldn't have otherwise, a new audience.
Yeah, and again, I think what we've said is that, and I think we have to be clear. This training that we deliver, is unique to Tayside, so it's something that we've set up and we deliver. And that's not to say there's not other suicide prevention training across Scotland, but as a result of that, we have had people inquiring from Fife and Lanarkshire and Ayrshire to say, how can I access this? So I suppose that shows the power of media to get people interested in asking the questions about how they might be able to help.
It's exactly that, and I mean, it's the fact that it's fully accessible to everybody. Anybody can start to get involved in it. But why would they, James? Let's finish. Why should anybody be interested in suicide prevention? Let's just take it back a few steps now and actually maybe just realise the size of the problem here that we're actually facing.
Okay, so let's look at a few facts, I suppose. So Scotland has the highest suicide rates in the UK. So that's per head of population. That's not overall. We don't have the most suicides, but per head of population, we have the highest suicide rates in the UK. So there's a start straight away. I think the second thing closer to home is Dundee has that an enviable kind of thing of the highest suicides in Scotland. So that's close to home. So we have to kind of say, right, I suppose part of it's asking why, but also, right, what can we do about this? So it is the single biggest killer of males 50 and under. So the single reason that males take their life is suicide. So there's some stark reasons why we need to kind of work with this. We need to do something, but it's not just men. So let's make it clear it's not men. What worryingly, we've seen an increase in young people completing suicide, and particularly young women. Now that's a change in what we used to see, and again that's concerning. So if we looked at our stats in Angus, we have overall lowest suicide rates compared to, but that is probably partly because we've been delivering this, but also we have some services here that can help people. But you can't be complacent. Currently, there's a suicide in the UK or in Scotland actually every 80 minutes. So that's
Wow.
So that's a rugby game, right? You follow rugby, that's a rugby game. So it's not even an average film now. So if you think about it, the time of something like a rugby game, say let's say the Scottish Internationals is coming up, the time that's in, somebody's taking their life, and I think that's quite It's quite sad.
It's in context. Like it really hits you hard, that stat. Actually, I remember when I heard that in the training. And I just like, you know, wow, it just it hits you, doesn't it? That's a fact, you know.
Yep. I think the other thing as well, for every person that takes their life, roughly about 135 people are affected. So if you think about that, if that's maybe a small neighbourhood or a small community, that's potentially that entire community has been affected by that. So it's not a case of it's one person. It's not just family and immediate friends. It has a rippling effect of up to 135 people. So again, if you look at that, then that's another reason, because we want to talk about, right, okay, how can we prevent that? How can we stop somebody thinking, this is my only way? And what we do know is the majority of people do not want to take their lives. What happens is they can't think of a way out. They feel entrapped, they feel stuck. And a lot of the training is saying, look, this is how to help somebody. This is how to speak to somebody who's feeling like that actually any of us could intervene and help them. So the suicide prevention, I suppose, is also recognising when somebody's not themselves and actually getting in there much earlier before it even gets to that point. So suicide prevention is not just about helping somebody who's feeling suicidal, but it's recognising some of the signs that, hold on, my friend's not themselves right now, so what's going on, and could I do something that, and being able to ask the question. I think a lot of people get worried, oh, that question, that's a real hard question, but I'll tell you, people are grateful if you've asked, because they know then you care. They might not feel like that. So, no, I've never felt like that. But the fact that you've asked me, I know that you care. I know you're interested in me. So that's the other thing. It's not just about asking that question. It's actually looking at all the other things that's going on in somebody's life that says, you know what, I need help.
And what is that question, James? I know I'm asking the obvious here, but just to hear you say it, what is that question that you ask?
That question is that: are you feeling suicidal? Have you ever had thoughts of wanting to take your life or kill yourself? Now, it's a very clear message. That's a powerful thing to say, and we don't dance around that topic because we want to get to, right, what is that? But it's also, some people will say, well, no, I've never felt like that. But I have felt really distressed. Other people might say, I have felt like that. And then sometimes the next question is, what keeps you going despite how you feel? So what's the thing that actually keeps you going despite that? And I suppose that's one of the things I would say what suicide prevention offers is people hope. And it's probably the most powerful thing that we can offer anybody. And sometimes that we offer hope to those that maybe don't have any of their own at that time. So I think it's not just about asking the question, but it's following it up. And it's actually quite amazing when a lot of this is about having a caring, compassionate response. It's allowing people to just talk. And I think we underestimate the difference that can make when you just allow somebody just to talk, open up, express themselves, and it leaves your head and it becomes real. And actually, sometimes you recognise, actually, I have got strategies, I've got things that mean things in my life. So, yeah, that's why it's so important.
Yeah, the reason I ask you to say it out loud is because, like, it was that when on the training for me, it was that so simple yet so far from what people do, including myself. Because it's like am I going to make it worse by asking that question? Am I going to encourage that person to do something by bringing it up? That's a genuine fear that I know people have got, and I would have as well. And just to get the reassurance that no, actually, that's not what you're not going to cause that. Hearing that was reassuring for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You cannot put that thought into somebody's head. That thought is already there. But actually, by asking about it, they say, actually, I've never felt like that. As much as I've gone through everything, I've never felt like that. So it's scary, I suppose, because you worry about, well, what if they say yes? What am I going to do? And I suppose that's that second part. Well, this is where you get help. This is where you go if people are needing help. This is what's there. But it's simply just offering, as I said, the care and compassion respond, kindness, for want of a better word, and it's amazing how that can make a difference.
It's really fascinating, James. If you don't mind me asking, I'm sure people are absolutely fascinated by this, but what got you into suicide prevention? Is this something you've been working with all your 38 years, or have you moved into this recently? Where Where did your interest come from?
I suppose I think the thing is, I think people assume that if you work in mental health, you must be some kind of expert in suicide prevention. I think I would have to say, well, no, you know, we're always learning, we're always finding out stuff. I was working in, I suppose, as part of my role as part of education anyway. I was doing a part of that, but this is something that for me was part of actually helping people look at well-being. Well-being is not about just keeping well, but it's asking the
Absolutely.
questions: what happens when we're not doing so? I had a colleague who was working at Dundee University at the time and says, would I be interested in doing this? And I went, absolutely, this is something to be really kind of keen and passionate about to do, because if we can get involved in something that stops people completing suicide, then why would you not want to do it? I think my frustration up to now, up until last year, has been not enough people not able, but actually putting it out there to get the trainers, to get people training, to get more and more people to understand this. I mean, alone, probably just on my own, probably have about 400-500 people every year that I've trained. But you imagine you get 14-15 people doing that, then you start really opening get across the population. So yeah, I've got a real passion for this. It's just a part of. I don't see it as to do my job. It's just something I really feels important to kind of helping, making a difference. Whether that be the teaching side or whether that actually be as obviously my part of my day-to-day job is speaking to people with mental health problems and helping them. So that's part of my day-to-day job as well. But it's about making a difference to people's lives.
It is massively. I mean, from my end, you know, there is a job focus for it, if you like. You know, having suicide prevention training, and I work with a lot of young people who are in that category of, you know, to spot the signs. I work with an after hours college that we meet every Thursday night. So it's important that I've got that. But for a personal reason, I shared this on the course as well. You know, I come from a small town in Perthshire, Blairgowrie, and it's a place where, unfortunately, there has been a number of completed suicides over the years. And I don't live there anymore, but all my family do, and it's very close to the bone, very close to my heart. And yeah, if there's anything I can do to help in general, then yeah, there's a passion, you know, there's a personal reason there as much as a professional one.
Yeah.
And it's a club that there's lots of different reasons I suppose people have got, but they needn't think they need to be a professional to ask that question. And they needn't think that if the question's answered, yes, I have had these thoughts, that they don't know what to do. And that's what I wanted to kind of go into for this part is, what do you do if someone does say yes to that question? What services are available in Angus and Tayside that you could point them towards to have that conversation?
Okay, so I think first and foremost, people often think about their GP. They often think, right, go to your GP. Now we all know it's not always easy to access that, but it's certainly a first point of call. I think if it's urgent, then people need to go to their GP. But obviously, it doesn't happen in hours. You know, it can happen at any time, night or day. So what services are out there? I suppose we've got the biggest things, like we've got the Samaritans and breathing space and stuff. So they're listening services. They can be really good in helping with that distress. I think if it's passive, you're actually having these passive thoughts about taking your life. If you're actually thinking about it, then within Angus we have Penumbra's suicide prevention service. So that is really helpful. So yeah, it's a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. But they're pretty quick to respond. They're usually within 40 hours. They're making a call to somebody saying, how can we help you? What can we do? So that and then potentially somebody might move on from that service. We also then obviously for those more, you know, where they've actually active plans and they're thinking about taking their life, then you've got the community mental health teams across Angus where somebody's thinking, you know, actually got a plan about suicide. I think the thing is, one of the things that we often can get bogged down with is, does the person have a mental health problem or not? And I think one of the ways to combat that was to put in Penumbra's service, because it's open to anybody that just is feeling suicidal.
So any age, James, as well? Is there age restrictions?
So 16 upwards. So for the Penumbra service, it's 16 upwards. For, I suppose, for my service, it's 16 up to 65, but then you've got older people coming to mental health teams, because I think we need to remember this can hit any age. So, you know, it's those are the services. And obviously we've got our app, we've got our suicide help app.
Yep.
So the suicide help app, so you can download that, whether it be on Apple or Android, and it's the Tayside suicide help app. One of the beauties about that is it has all the phone numbers that you would need. So rather than
Exactly.
getting people to scramble around thinking where can I get help, it has all the phone numbers there. It's accessible. It has the apart like if I'm worried about my friend, what can I say or what should I not say? So there's a
Yep.
bit in that. And there's the safety plan, and the safety plan's a key part of that person putting together a plan to keep them not only keep themselves safe, but think so. The app in itself is really a one-stop shop. I think we should also talk about out of hours, so people can phone NHS 24,
Yep.
and NHS 24 does have access to mental health. Services. So what we have is that you can go one or two ways. You may get put through to the mental health team side of thing, which is based at Curfew, or you might get put to the mental health hub. So there's a hub within NHS 24 that does what they call distress brief intervention. And
Mhm.
that's something that's coming to Tayside soon. So a new service is going to be set up to help people with distress, and it'll be called a distress brief intervention service. And that's looking to be started by Penumbral in April. So again, another service. So we have invested. Unfortunately, if you have been bereaved by suicide, and unfortunately some people have, then there is Insight Counselling's Bereaved by Suicide service, and that can help anybody that's lost someone to suicide. And it doesn't matter how long ago that was, and that's open to any age. And that's, again, we've invested in that because we understand, and we do know actually that people who have unfortunately bereaved by suicide have an increased chance of completing suicide themselves. So again, that's why that's important. So there's a wide range, but I would absolutely tell people download that app because it gives you a kind of one-stop shop of things that are out there, rather than trying to scramble about with a piece of paper or
Mhm.
look up something on Google. Then it's there, it's all in the app, and it's really good if you're working in services as well because then you've got it all. I know when I'm seeing somebody with their mental health problems, and their suicide, I'll encourage them to download that app there and then because it's then on their phone.
It's great. No, I have to say, I'm so pleased you mentioned the app there as well, because that was something I downloaded as well. And actually, if anyone out there is thinking of coming to do the training, we go through the app in detail in the second half of the afternoon. So we go through the whole thing, explain everything about the wellness action plan, places of distraction, all the stuff that James has been talking about. It's on that app. But even if you can do it right now, we've put it up in the comments there what to download. You get on the Android store or the Apple store. Download it. It's free to download, and even if it's just to have those numbers in one place, perfect. It really is a great tool, and we're so fortunate just that anybody can just download it, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yep. Yep.
Now, James, just in the last few minutes here, I just wanted to just kind of discuss something around stigma with suicide, because stigma, we've mentioned it a few times throughout this, but we haven't massively explored it. Now, even just a word I've noticed you saying throughout this interview that some people might or might not have picked up on was you use the phrase completing suicide throughout this interview. Do you mind sharing why you use that word instead of committing?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose often people will say committed and they say, oh, such and such committed suicide. And I suppose committed is often seen as it was like committing a crime. So it's a crime. Well, it's not a crime. And so that's why we use the word completed. So in England, unfortunately, in the 60s, it was considered to be a crime to attempt suicide. So in England,
Mhm.
it was seen as a crime, but it's never been the case in Scotland. And I think it's if we use the word completed on the basis that people do not want to take their lives, it is something that they feel that they don't know which way to go. So when we talk about completed, it's not that the person thought that was the right thing to do or they wanted to do that, it's they felt they had no other options. So that's why we use the word completed. And I think the other thing in terms of stigma is that one of the things we think, oh, well, that couldn't be me or that couldn't be my friend, this happens.
Mhm.
Well, actually, it could. It could be absolutely anybody in the right circumstances. Anybody can find themselves in. So, one of the barriers to break down that stigma is to say, actually, what you would find interesting is if you came on our course, you'd probably find that I have a number of factors that are suicide linked, but that doesn't mean you're at risk of suicide, but
Yeah.
you have the factors and may well have more than one. So I think that helps people to kind of understand, actually, I've got quite a number of those things. Again, doesn't mean I'm feeling suicidal, but so that helps to break down that stigma and recognise that that could happen to anybody.
I absolutely agree. That's why, I mean, maybe some people would have noticed the language, others wouldn't have. But certainly, when I came onto the training at first, I was using the phrase committed, quite not knowing otherwise. But now I've heard the rationale behind it. I completely agree that the change of a word, words are powerful. The words we use internally are very powerful, and the words we use externally are very powerful too. So a slight change in language can change the stigma attached. And
Yeah.
I think people are now speaking more openly about their mental health. It's not such a thing that we're trying to hide away as much as maybe in the past. There's still a lot of work to be doing with it, but the more open we can be and the more we can talk about these things and realize there's ears out there that are listening to you, there's services to go. We can all, I believe we can all tackle this a lot more.
Yeah. I would totally agree. I think every person that came on to become a trainer, you could tell they were really, really passionate about it. They were coming in for their own personal reasons. They weren't coming, I just want to be a trainer. They were passionate. I mean, I think we saw that with every single person. Either they'd been affected by suicide in their lives or they actually wanted to do something to kind of reduce this, to make a difference, to change something. As we said about the whole Dundee and having the highest, there was quite a number of there was not 3 nurses there for Dundee saying,
Yeah.
right, that's it. They're going on a campaign. They will change this. And
enough's enough. They said it was really strong as well. We don't want our city with that tagline. We don't want that headline because
that is a social movement. You have a social movement and you make changes, and that can start with just a few people. And I think part of that's what we want to do. We want to make changes that we take away that tagline and we no longer have that. So yeah, it's all good.
No, James, absolutely. Just come towards the end there, but it's flown by, and seriously, it's been a great conversation. I know we spoke before it, we could go on for. We're both talkers, so I know we could go on forever, and we've got so much more we could talk about. We want to keep it really concise towards suicide prevention in Tayside. We want to give an understanding of what this training would involve. How anybody can get involved in it, and then also if you are needing some advice at the moment, there are services out there that you can go and talk to currently. But please, if you are interested, get in touch with me via the DA Student Wellbeing email address, which is going to be popped in the comments below or on the Facebook page. James's Twitter's also up there as well. We'll encourage you to download the app as well, which also the Tayside Suicide Help app. And anything else, James? Any other places any other tags or social medias or anything you want to get out at the end here?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the other thing, and people may or may not be aware, but there's a new kind of social movement called United to Prevent Suicide. So again, go on social media, look at that, because that's a national campaign to reduce suicide, and it's really about a huge social movement to change attitudes. And if you follow football, you'll probably notice that they designed a football top. So United to Prevent Suicide designed a football top. It was worn by well-known footballers across Scottish football and international football, and it was such a huge thing. They already have 6 million followers, and they ended up having to sell the tops. They were originally just for a promotion.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they've actually ended up selling the tops. So follow that movement. It's a huge social movement, and anybody again can be involved in that. So again, if you've got an interest, that you can sign up. That you can go into their I think their accounts and you can follow. So United to Prevent Suicide. So it was a Scottish government funded thing, but it's got a huge following. But let's say the football side of things alone on that, whether or not you follow it, is 6 million. That's massive. That's a huge number of followers. So that has been a really, really good thing. So again, if people are interested, there's some national stuff out there as well if you want to kind of get into that. So yeah, there's that as well.
No, absolutely brilliant, James. And we could go on all day, like I said, but we'll leave it there. And just thanks so much for coming on today and giving us an insight into that. And yeah, everybody watching this, spread the word. Use those tags, get talking about it, and get in touch if this is something of interest to you. And we'll see you in the future.
Okay. Cheers.
Thanks, James. Thanks so much for coming on. Cheers, then.
Bye. Bye.
And that's this.